First-generation jet fighter. The beginning of the jet age, born in the final months of World War II. The Messerschmitt Me 262 and Britain's Gloster Meteor entered service in 1944. Neither fast enough nor numerous enough to change the war's outcome, but both proof that piston engines had reached their ceiling. The North American F-86 Sabre and Soviet MiG-15 defined this generation in combat over Korea. Straight or swept wings, machine guns and cannons, subsonic or barely transonic speeds. No missiles. No radar worth mentioning. The pilot's eyes were the targeting system. 2. Second-generation jet fighter. Supersonic speed achieved. The Korean War exposed every limitation of the first generation, and the second generation answered them directly. Aircraft like the Lockheed F-104 Starfighter and the Convair F-102 Delta Dagger broke Mach 1 cleanly and then Mach 2. Onboard radar arrived. The first air-to-air missiles replaced guns as the primary weapon for air superiority missions. The F-104 reached Mach 2 and climbed at over 50,000 feet per minute, making it one of the most extreme performance envelopes ever fitted to a production fighter. It also had the glide ratio of a crowbar, but that is a separate conversation. 3. Third-generation jet fighter, multi-role capability introduced. The Vietnam War era produced aircraft that had to do everything. Intercept, strike, reconnaissance, close air support, and the F-4 Phantom II became the archetype of that ambition. Radar-guided and infrared missiles matured. Beyond visual range engagement became a real operational concept rather than a theoretical one. Pulse Doppler radar arrived. Laser-guided bombs made precision strike viable for the first time. The F-4 flew for 11 nations and remained in active service with some air forces for over 50 years, which is the most honest endorsement any aircraft can receive. 4. Fourth-generation jet fighter. The digital revolution applied to a fighter airframe. The F-15 Eagle entered service in 1976 with fly-by-wire flight controls, pulse Doppler radar capable of tracking targets at any altitude against ground clutter, and a thrust-to-weight ratio above 1 at combat weight, meaning it could accelerate vertically. The F-16 Fighting Falcon followed as the lightweight counterpart, a single-engine multi-role platform so successful that over 4,600 have been built for more than 25 nations. The FC-18 Hornet brought the same generation to carrier aviation. These aircraft still make up the majority of operational fighter fleets worldwide in 2025, which is the clearest possible statement about how far ahead of their time the fourth generation was when it arrived. 5. Fourth generation plus and 4.5 generation fighters. The gap between fourth and fifth generation bridged. The Dassault Rafale, Eurofighter Typhoon, Boeing F-5EX, and Saab Gripen E all occupy this tier. Fourth-generation airframes upgraded with active electronically scanned array radar, advanced electronic warfare suites, high-capacity data links, and the ability to carry current and future precision weapons. The Rafale has seen combat in Afghanistan, Libya, Mali, Iraq, Syria, and most recently the Middle East. The Eurofighter Typhoon holds the edge in raw kinematic performance, capable of supercruise at Mach 1.5 without afterburner. The F-15EX carries the largest payload of any tactical fighter in current production, up to 29,500 pounds of weapons on 13 hardpoints. These aircraft cost between $80 million and $120 million per unit and represent the realistic procurement ceiling for most Allied air forces. 6. Fifth-generation stealth fighter. Stealth as a design discipline rather than a feature. The F-22 Raptor entered service in December 2005 as the world's first operational fifth-generation fighter. All-aspect, low-observable design, thrust vectoring nozzles, supercruise capability at Mach 1.8 without afterburner, and sensor fusion that presents the pilot with a unified battlespace picture rather than separate instruments to interpret. Only 187 were built. Program cost across those 187 airframes ran to approximately $67 billion, placing the real per-unit cost at around $334 million. In red flag exercises, the Raptor has maintained simulated kill ratios exceeding 100 to 1 against fourth-generation opponents. No adversary aircraft has achieved a simulated kill against an F-22 in any documented training engagement. The F-35 Lightning II followed as the multi-role complement. 3 variants, over 1,200 delivered, flyaway cost now at around $82 million for the conventional F-35A. Where the F-22 clears the airspace, the F-35 exploits it. 7. Sixth-generation fighter, the boundary of what is currently in development. On March 21, 2025, President Trump announced that Boeing had won the engineering and manufacturing development contract for the next-generation air dominance program, designated the F-47. The contract is worth over $20 billion. The Air Force intends to procure at least 185 examples. Confirmed specifications include a combat radius exceeding 1,000 nautical miles, a top speed above Mach 2, and stealth characteristics that surpass the F-22 and F-35. The F-47 will operate alongside autonomous drone wingmen called Collaborative Combat Aircraft, commanding them from the cockpit as a manned-unmanned teaming system. First flight of a production representative prototype is expected in 2028, with initial operational capability targeted for the early 2030s. China has already flown two sixth-generation prototypes, the Chengdu J-36 and Shenyang J-50, both first observed in December 2024. The race for sixth-generation air dominance is not theoretical. It is already airborne. 8. Strategic bomber, conventional, the other dimension of air power separate from fighter generations and no less important to understand. The Boeing B-52 Stratofortress first flew in 1952 and is expected to remain in active service through 2050, a single airframe design spanning nearly a century of operational use. The B-1B Lancer entered service in 1986 with a variable sweep wing, Mach 125 top speed, and the largest conventional payload of any aircraft in the U.S. inventory at 75,000 pounds of weapons. The B-52 has been continuously upgraded with new engines, avionics, and weapons systems across its service life. It currently carries cruise missiles, precision-guided munitions, and nuclear gravity bombs with equal reliability. No aircraft in history has demonstrated this combination of longevity and sustained operational relevance. 9. Strategic bomber, stealth, the B-2 Spirit. A flying wing with no vertical surfaces, a radar cross-section comparable to a large bird, and the ability to carry 40,000 pounds of weapons to any target on Earth from continental United States bases with aerial refueling. Unit cost of approximately $2.1 billion across the 21 aircraft produced, making it the most expensive combat aircraft ever built by a significant margin. The B-2 entered service in 1997 and has flown combat missions in Kosovo, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Libya. Its successor, the Northrop Grumman B-21 Raider, is currently in flight testing. The B-21 was designed with next-generation stealth characteristics and open architecture software for continuous upgrades, carrying a unit cost estimated at around $700 million, significantly lower than the B-2, partly because the production run is expected to be at least 100 aircraft. 10. Electronic warfare and suppression aircraft, the aircraft that make everything else possible. The Boeing EA-18G Growler is the only dedicated electronic attack aircraft in Western service, derived from the F-18F Super Hornet with all internal guns and some hardpoints replaced by electronic warfare systems. It carries the AN/LQ-99 tactical jamming system and the next-generation AN/LQ-249 next-generation jammer, capable of disrupting enemy radar, communications, and air defense networks across the electromagnetic spectrum. Without Growler support, fifth-generation stealth fighters face significantly higher threat environments. The aircraft does not make headlines the way a Raptor or Lightning II does. It makes the Raptors and Lightning's missions survivable, which is a different category of importance entirely. 11. Airborne early warning and control, the force multiplier that the fighter fleet cannot operate without. The Boeing E-3 Sentry, based on the 777 airframe, has provided airborne radar coverage for NATO and U.S. forces since 1977. The rotating radar dome processes returns at ranges exceeding 200 miles, tracking hundreds of aircraft simultaneously and directing fighter assets toward threats before the fighter pilot's own radar detects anything. The Northrop Grumman E-2D Advanced Hawkeye performs the same function for carrier aviation in a much smaller package, a turboprop aircraft with a rotating radar dome capable of detecting stealth aircraft at relevant ranges through advanced signal processing. The E-7 Wedgetail, operated by Australia, the UK, and South Korea, represents the current generation of this capability with a fixed active array antenna, replacing the traditional rotating dome. 12. Close Air Support Dedicated Platform, the A-10 Thunderbolt II. A 30mm Gatling cannon firing 3,900 rounds per minute as the primary design driver, with everything else, the airframe, the twin turbofan engines mounted high above the fuselage to reduce foreign object ingestion, the titanium bathtub protecting the pilot, built around the requirement to deliver that cannon accurately at low altitude over friendly ground forces. The Air Force has been trying to retire the A-10 for over a decade. Congress has blocked every attempt. The aircraft's community of supported ground forces, veterans, and legislators constitutes a political constituency that has outlasted multiple budget cycles and multiple chiefs of staff. The A-10 remains in service because no replacement has demonstrated equivalent survivability and lethality in the low-altitude close air support mission against a thinking, armed opponent. 13. Carrier Strike Fighter, current generation. The FC-18EF Super Hornet has been the backbone of U.S. Navy carrier aviation since 1999 and will remain so through the 2030s. Roughly 30% larger than the original Hornet, with 35% more range, more powerful engines, and a significantly expanded weapons payload. The Block 3 upgrade added conformal fuel tanks, an advanced cockpit system, an enhanced network capability, and infrared search and track. The Super Hornet cost approximately $67 million per aircraft in current production. Over 600 are in U.S. Navy service. Australia operates 24. The aircraft has performed every mission the carrier air wing is asked to fly: strike, air superiority, electronic attack in the Growler variant, and aerial refueling as the organic tanker when dedicated tanker assets are not available. 14. Unmanned Combat Aerial Vehicle. Emerging tier, the category that is currently being defined rather than described. The General Atomics MQ-9 Reaper has established the template for remotely piloted strike operations over the past 2 decades. A 66-foot wingspan turboprop capable of 27 hours of continuous flight, carrying Hellfire missiles and 500-pound precision-guided bombs at altitudes up to 50,000 feet, operated from a ground station that can be located on another continent. The next tier is the Collaborative Combat Aircraft Program, where General Atomics and Anduril are developing autonomous drone wingmen designed to fly alongside the F-47 F-22 in contested airspace, conducting strike, electronic warfare, reconnaissance, and decoy missions without a pilot aboard. The Air Force intends to procure at least 1,000 of these aircraft. At full fielding, the ratio of autonomous aircraft to manned fighters in a combat package will invert everything that has been true about air power since 1944. 15. Hypersonic Strike. The Faultier. The category where speed eliminates the concept of interception entirely. A hypersonic weapon traveling above Mach 5 gives existing air defense systems insufficient time to respond from detection to engagement. The AGM-183A air-launched rapid response weapon, developed for B-52 carriage, is the U.S. program closest to operational status. Russia's Kh-47M2 Kinzhal hypersonic missile has been employed in combat in Ukraine, demonstrating that hypersonic strike is no longer a future capability but a present reality. China's DF-17 hypersonic glide vehicle and the U-74 maneuvering warhead represent the peer competitor capabilities driving U.S. investment in hypersonic offense and defense simultaneously. The aircraft that carries a hypersonic weapon is no longer competing with air defense systems on the terms those systems were designed for. It is operating in a domain where the rules of engagement have not yet been written.